Hey guys, welcome to my week 8 Thursday night football prediction video where the Vikings go visit the Rams in SoFi Stadium. Obviously, the Rams beat the Raiders 20 to 15. It wasn't really that pretty of a game, not much to be said. Obviously, the Rams have kind of struggled a lot. They looked like they could potentially be a good team like early, but I think, injuries, obviously the two top weapons, Puka and Cup, doesn't help, and then I mean Kyron Williams has been playing out of his mind. He's a good running back. And then you got the Vikings who lost a nail biter against the Lions on Sunday, where they lost because of a walk-off field goal. But they were previously one of two undefeated teams going into last week, where now the Chiefs are the only undefeated team. But looking at this game, obviously the Rams, they go up against the Raiders, and the Raiders, I mean, started O'Connell. He fractures his thumb, and then Minshew plays. Minshew doesn't play terribly, but obviously not enough to win. But they're essentially kind of talentless at wide receiver, where it's like they traded Adams last week. He had obviously been hurt, but the Raiders have had a very struggle bus season, where it's like I think the only game that they won that was kind of wild was against the Ravens. But looking at these two teams, obviously the Vikings, still have a lot to be kind of thankful for that they competed with a team like the Lions, who I honestly think is playing, the second best football in the league, only behind the Ravens. But looking at this game, I think the Rams are it's going to be a kind of hard game for them because defensively, like I said, they go to playing against receivers with not a lot of talent, no household names, and the only real like potential household name on the Raiders at this point is um is Brock, their tight end, and then they go to the Vikings who are stacked at wide receiver, and their tight end is still hurt, and I would not rush Hawkinson back just because I think the Vikings don't have an overly tough schedule besides the divisional games late in the year, which they'll need Hawkinson. So looking at this game, I definitely fully expect the Vikings to win. I think that the Rams may have some magic. Obviously, Stafford is a competitor and he competes regardless of who he has at wide receiver, placing the ball in very tight windows and doing, good things that way. I think the Vikings, obviously getting off a tough win, will look to get back in the win column right afterwards and really kind of, rejuvenate the team, going into a tough second half of the season. Obviously, week 8 is kind of, the I wouldn't like the unofficial end of the first half, but there's obviously 17 games now that are played. But, the Vikings, really need this win because if you drop, I mean, one loss in a division the way that it's been playing, I could be huge for playoff seeding and whatever else. And obviously, they don't want to fall too far behind the Lions, even though they have the same record. And overall, I just think that, looking at this game, they said they designated Puka to come back from IR. That'd be a huge boost. But I do think the Vikings will be able to get after Stafford. And, there's guys that have been on the team, like a Harrison Smith and some of these other guys that still probably remember, Stafford very well. And they're going to say, oh, this is how we need to play in order to not give him what he wants and give him opportunities. Because as we all know, Stafford's got the arm talent, the arm placement, and the competitive nature to just really punish a team regardless of who he has at wide receiver. And I think, this season has been a testament to still how talented he is. Obviously, I think if they're going to win, it does fall to their defense. How much can they really limit the Vikings? I will say that Jefferson has been kind of limited this year. He hasn't been the crazy player that we really all know, that's like incredibly dominant and that sort of thing. So I I honestly think that, like, he's kind of a ticking time bomb waiting to happen. Maybe they're not milking it to him as much. Maybe they just have other strategies and that sort of thing. But at this point, you look at, Jefferson's year and he's only got one game above 100 yards. So, obviously they've had a bye week. The Vikings are 5-1 and he has 531 yards through 6 games. And I just think that you look at a guy like Jefferson, you kind of expect a little bit more, especially since Hawkinson has been hurt, you know, pretty much the whole season. But looking at this game, I think you don't need to utilize Jefferson a lot. Addison has been doing well. And it's just the overall weaponry of the Vikings is going to be too much for the Rams defense to handle. I know this was kind of a short one, but I think that, there's not much to cover here. I think the Rams, with the Cooper trade rumors, it's almost like, to me, is he going to be on account? Because he's obviously not injured anymore. And if they're trying to get a trade for him, how much are you really going to utilize him or want to utilize him, barring that he potentially gets hurt again, as he's been kind of a somewhat fragile player, in his career. But if you guys have any other opinions or any comments on this game or how you think it's going to play out, I would be glad to hear them. And as always, go Pack Go.